Well, welcome back to this episode of Did She Really Say That? Yeah, I'm welcoming you back because if you've been listening, you know we bring only extraordinary, amazing women into this podcast. Because when I say, Did she really say that? How many of you guys are a little afraid of having like a co-founder or a business partner, or you've heard the horror stories about them?
Mhm.
Well, that's why I brought in Kezia because we need to have some real straight talk around this, ladies, because honestly, you're not meant to do a solo act. I don't care what the outside marketing bro brothers
Mhm.
tell you, this is the false narrative. So, you know me, when I start building businesses and helping women out, the one thing I always say is that you need a plan and you need structure, which is why I love and have created the Create Her Planner because this is really the first intrinsic planner that actually teaches women how to build within their energy cycle. And Kezia is on here because I said, you know what? We got to start talking about developing your business because here's where most of us don't even consider this. So, who is Kezia? Kezia is an amazing name, first and foremost. She's a business strategist, right? She's a transformation coach and an investor with over 20 years of experience working with executive leaderships, CEOs, co-founders, founders across multiple industries. Why? Because she recognizes that we have no freaking clue what we're doing when we build our business, and especially when we get into a partnership. You know, they call her the shape shifter. I'm not sure that's a cool name or a bad name, but I think what it really means is that she has the ability to adapt. How many of you ladies here in the audience are adapters? Yep, you're my shapeshifters. You're able to really look at challenges, assess them from an outside point of view, and then dive into where you are. So, yeah, I'm super excited because Kezia is exactly who you should be listening to because we're going to have some super fun conversation around business partnership. You ready? Let's dive in. So, let's talk business partnership. How the heck did you decide that this was going to be your business model, first and foremost?
Oh my God. By accident. Everything,
Okay.
like everything in life. I actually started my career. I went to school to be a physicist. My undergrad degree is in physics. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be win a Nobel Prize or something like that. I don't know whatever.
Holy crap. Okay.
Yeah, the kind of ideas you have when you're like 17 years old, right?
I like it. I
Um,
like it.
and and then I actually worked in a physics lab for a bunch of summers, and I realized that I did not want to spend my whole life like engaging with particles. Like they're great, they're amazing, we need them, but this is not the life for me.
This is
Uh,
not human. Got it.
right, but it's funny because I moved over into finance. I always really liked the analysis and the kind of understanding and how you break things down and put them back together that you do in science. So I moved into finance, and I ended up doing that for about a decade. And one day I kind of woke up and I was like, man, I'm spending a lot of time with spreadsheets and not a whole lot of time with people. Uh,
So you
and
went from particles to spreadsheets.
Right. You could see how though, like there are more people in an office and you get to go to conferences and you get to like have, and I would have these epic dinner parties and stuff. I was like really great. And then it's so funny that once I left that and I started working more with people, all of a sudden I have no desire to entertain because I was like, I don't need to. I talk to people all day long. I
Yeah.
engage them all day long. But a friend of mine needed help. Her business was in bad shape and she'd been running it for a while. And had gotten herself just out over her skis, and she had owed the government a lot of money in back taxes, and she'd had a bad divorce, a bunch of things going on. And I was looking for something, and I was like, you know what? I love business. I love you. I got a lot of ideas. I'm a hardworking person. I'll come in as your business partner.
Okay.
And the turnaround worked, right, on the business, but the friendship was very rocky. And it
Mm.
after about a year, I had to leave. I always say, orange is I love orange. It's just not my best color. And at that time, I was going to murder her. Um, and it wasn't
Wait, hold on. How many of there are listening in your audience and you've kind of had that thought, maybe not just with a business partner, but with other individuals in your life? So this is important. Like listen in and dial in because you're gonna want to turn up the volume and so go, oh, okay, what are we
yeah.
dropping next?
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting, right? About and as I then shifted, I did a lot more consulting and I kept moving in operations. I helped people set up businesses. And then I one day had a client who was like, "You're really not a consultant, you're like a coach." And I
Mm.
was like, Oh, and I thought that was a dirty word. Like a lot of like people, I was like, oh no, every woman 10 years out of business school becomes a life coach. And this is what we do. Right. And it's so funny because I've really learned to like embrace that. But as I, even with coaching, I started and I was getting these partnerships and I was like so like intense. Like I was like, oh God, how do I keep them together? How do I make it work?
Yeah,
And I finally got to a place where I was like, it's not always going to work.
true.
And I was like, and you know what? If they're friends coming in, the thing that I care most about is that your friends coming out,
Yes, that is
right?
so, so key.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's like if your friends going into a marriage, like, let's see, you might not stay married, but can we keep you friends on the way out? And so
Yeah.
that's a lot of what like I look back and I said, oh, I loved her. She loved me. We rebuilt the relationship. We're friends now. Um, but we never had any conversations about what it would like to be in business together, what would
Oh.
be different about being in business than about being friends, how we were going to handle conflict, right? You have a lot
Mm.
of conflict with your friends normally, right? If you do, you're probably not friends with them for very long. But guaranteed
Typically
you're going to have
not.
conflict with your business
With your business
partner.
partner. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yep.
So those were the things that I was like came to me and I realized that that was really important to me
Mm.
going forward. And is I'm like, there's all these people and being in business partnership when it works great. It is amazing, right? You are not alone in that ship.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing, but when it goes south, it's like a bad marriage. It's like a broken friendship. It can be really, really devastating. So that was kind of what the impetus for me to really shift my practice more towards co-founders, partnerships, teams.
And I think that's a much needed because we don't hear. Honestly, I've been in the digital marketing and business growth space since like 2008. I think you're the first person I've ever come across that actually addresses this like approach to the partnership because to be honest, everybody I know is kind of building out like their own thing. They want to have a partner, but they hear so-called horror stories, right? And I
Hmm.
think it goes back to like what you said, the communication, the expect setting up some boundaries, some expectations between what are who are we as business partners and then there's our friendship,
Yeah.
right? And that we don't want to jeopardize the friendship. We can disagree in the world of business, but we also want to maintain an integrity around us being friends.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think it's so important. That's why I invited you on here to Did She Really Say That? Because ladies, listen in. Like I said earlier, this your business should not be a solo project. I've
Well, and it's
actually
not a,
heard that over and over
yeah.
again.
And it isn't, one of the things about this is like, even if you're not becoming a co founder,
Mm,
these practical tools, like the way that I approach it, I've had clients come back to me and say, hey, that was so great for helping me and my co founder have a better conversation, but I also used it with my teenager.
yeah,
It shifted the way that I thought about it. You might be a solo owner, but have team members, right? And business partners and folks like you, Katrina, who are on the team helping them grow their own business. So
yeah.
those how you build these skills for building relationships, getting into alignment, they pay dividends all over.
They
Um,
do. Because
yeah,
it's communication. At its core, it's understanding the communication aspect of what you're getting
yeah,
into. So I do want to dive into a little bit of the, I guess, the legal jargon of
yeah,
maybe setting up a business partnership. Because I know there's a lot of women that say, and I've heard it. I've honestly, for those of my audience that are listening, you've heard it from other women. They're like, I would love to bring somebody on or find a co-founder or bring in a business partner because this solo crap is for the
yeah,
birds. Like, I don't have anybody to bounce ideas off of. I've got nobody to, problem solve with. It's just me, myself, and I. And then I'm working with clients trying to help them, but I don't have that support. So I know a
yeah.
lot of my audience is listening. So what are some of the first couple of steps or guidances that you would recommend for somebody that's considering saying, hey, they've been approached by a friend, kind of vetting this out? What would be some
Yeah.
of the ways to start this?
So one of the first things that I think is really helpful is to do a relationship inventory on yourself. So each of you doing this, you might do it separately. You might, if you are comfortable doing it together.
Okay.
But I encourage clients to. I'm like, when we talk about relationships, it isn't just business relationships, right? It isn't just traditional co-founder partnership. So it could be what's your relationship like with your siblings? What's the relationship with
Mm,
romantic partners? Going through, it could be if you were. I think we had learning teams in graduate school. Like a lot of times people had that experience. You might be involved in a nonprofit or a church group or a temple group together, whatever. But you want to look at when I have worked with in small groups or one-on-one with other people or engaged in a long-term relationship with someone. So that's what it could be romantic, could be a best friend. Just going through and starting like an adulthood, right? So we usually start with like, let's say in your 20s, and depends on you can go, just go like, what worked, what was great, what wasn't so great. Okay. And you just
see-
start to go, and the idea is you're looking for patterns in yourself.
mm, got it.
Sometimes often we think the problem is the other person.
Over there.
It's over there. Right? But I think we've all had a friend who kept dating the same person, and you're like, and it's like you're in a long-term relationship. It's just that the other seat keeps changing faces, but you are
Mm,
having repeating the same fight. You fight the same way, the topics, the dysfunction. So you want to get a sense for yourself. And it can be helpful, especially if you're going in with a friend where you have a lot of insight to share that because they may have some insight into how your patterns look and yours, and you might into
yeah.
yours. But I encourage that even if you're like, hey, I don't have a target right now to be my business partner. I'm just interested in understanding what am I like in partnership? And what are
Okay.
the trigger points for me? What are the patterns? Because if you have a lot of repeated patterns of creating dysfunctional relationships, there's no reason why this one is going to be different.
Agree.
Okay.
But
So
even yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Yeah. So I kind of like sometimes people need therapy, right? I mean, we all need therapy. I love my therapist. I encourage all my clients to have a therapist. But
We all
sometimes,
need to be talking stuff out. Yes.
right, you're looking for a partner and it's like you don't have a model or a pattern of solid partnership for whatever reason. It's usually not your fault, usually family of origin. But if you don't have that, then there's a likelihood that you're just going to get into a dysfunctional relationship, no
Yeah.
matter how good it could be with the other person. You will participate in it. And if they both have the similar situation, you're both going to do it together. So that's something where I always say start with yourself, do the relationship inventory, get a glass of wine if you like to drink, sometimes loosen up a bit and be real with yourself about what has worked and what has not worked in past relationships.
Yeah.
So that's step one.
Okay. And I will just tie into this because when we first built Truth Bomb Marketing, I had established it as a company and then I brought on two business partners at the same time. Like we were sitting together, it was
Mm,
me and the two other friends talking, and we're like, hey, what if we just go into partnership with us? And the exact words out of everyone's mouth was like, this business cannot be at the detriment of our friendship. Like the
yeah,
friendship has to stay strong, everything else around the business, it needs to be structured in there. So we actually did do the kind of like a strengths analysis for each
yep,
other, right? So we
yeah,
had each of us write down what are we, what's our strength, what's our weakness, where do we feel like we need communication. And even when we started the partnership, we had to do projects back and forth and we'd ask each other for feedback and just how we wanted feedback, how it was
yeah,
constructive and not critical for us. What made us feel good about what we did and what made us feel like you're minimizing my like who I am in the world. So it was at least even for me, it was being able to communicate that and even understand as a leader where I would get stuck in my communications. Like when do I shut down when
hmm,
like I get into a sense of overwhelm and there's a lot, then like when do I shut down and when do I need to be back out and breathing and how do I give you guys signals or signs that I'm in shutdown mode, right?
yeah,
So just those little things that help us become aware. And what I love about this is because we did lose one of our business partners. So we went from
hmm,
three down to two. And again, that friendship still remains. Like we go to the
yeah,
beach. I wish her happy birthday. I hang
yeah.
out with her and her
It's
husband
wonderful.
because we really set the intention, which is why this is why we're having this conversation, is setting that intention of what does this business relationship look like and what is our friendship going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what is so great about that, and I is the anticipation.
Mm.
that there will be conflict. Conflict is normal.
Yeah.
If you're, I don't know if you're familiar with the Gottman Institute, but they have this statistic that says like in marriages, 69% of conflict is perpetual. One person drives too fast, one drives too slow. Somebody's messy,
Mm.
somebody's clean. In business, this will show up too. Somebody's like, let's rip the band-aid off. Just tell me exactly what I did wrong. Another person's like, hey, could you give it to me softly? I like it, sandwich it with some of this. So we have these like the things that are going to create friction
Mm.
are often perpetual. And so it's not about having no friction, but it's about how you handle it. So the
Yeah.
second thing that I usually do when people have the partnership together is I encourage them to drop like in coaching, they often call it designed alliance, but it's like not a hard, like I'm not trying to make it a brick. I said if you make something a brick, you can weaponize it, right? It's like easy to hit
Yep.
somebody else over the head with it. You didn't agree to the terms of our partnership. Start with it kind of more of a gentle, but it's like, what do we want it to be like? What's the culture we're trying to create? What are the shared values that we want to
Mm-hmm.
embrace, right? Those can be different from our personal values. Right? Like there's other work that we can do if people have very different personal values and they still want to get in partnership. Like what are our shared values? And then really, how do we handle conflict? And a lot of
Mm.
it focuses on how do we want to be when the conflict comes, not
Yeah.
how do we want to avoid the conflict, but how do we want to be when the conflict comes? And you end up with like 5 or 6. You can, some people like to write a lot, some people pretty type, but like bullet points. And I always said, pop that in the chat, put that on the, write it out on a flip chart and stick it on the wall and see how it's going, right? So start the process of, and you're what that conversation about how we want to be is really powerful. And if you have, especially if you're married to your business partner, but if you're family members or you're really good friends, you can do a separate one. So you can say, let's consider when we're friends. How do we want to handle friction when we're in our friendship? And how do we want to handle
Mm.
in our business partnership? Probably different, right? What are the values that we hold in our friendship? A lot of times in friendship, consensus is much more important than it would be in business, right? So
Yeah.
those are the things that you can do. So if I find if they're close friends, family members, married, it's really good to do it twice. And that way you have an opportunity to go, hey, ooh, I feel like I'm blending into one when we should be in the other. Yeah.
Yeah, because you'll find yourself doing it. It's going to be a natural habit. It's just gonna
Impossible
be,
not to.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're a human being, so it's not like you can compartmentalize yourself completely. There's just going to be a hey, now we're putting our business hats on. Let's talk business. Let's
Mhm.
resolve whatever the conflict is. All right, so that's taken care of. We've closed that one. So that kind of leads me to the next question: is like, what do you consider a non-negotiable in getting into a partnership? Like what's something that you're like, this has got to be very clear?
So the thing about it is like I always say about values, all values are created equal. There's not equal to you or me, right?
Ah,
So
okay.
I consider a lot of things like being late is one that I'm like, I don't care. I'm late. Like if you're an hour late and you don't let me know, then I'm annoyed. But like I'm 5 minutes late to everything. You're 5 minutes late. It's a fine. There are other people where
Mhm.
they're like, this is not acceptable. When we say the meeting starts, the meeting needs to start, right? And so if that again, the relationship inventory is
Mm,
really helpful for you to get a sense of what are your non-negotiables?
okay.
What are the things? So I'll often have partners do into personal values, go through, and then we'll look at, okay, what is your shared values? How do we merge those?
Mm.
Okay. And if they're really different in that process, they'll usually be able to go, I don't think it's going to work. Right.
And that's a tip off, right? That's your first tip off that this isn't going to work, and that's okay.
Yeah, you'd rather know now than 3 years from now when you've like your bank account, you have essentially you've commingled all your business funds and your
Yeah.
clients,
Yeah.
and you have employees, and now you're thinking, what about the kids when we get divorced, right? How do the employees get take it? So you'd always rather know upfront. Um,
Mm.
I think for me, like personally, I look at I have a very hard time if somebody has like a history of fraud, right? Now,
Oh God, yeah, that's a total no.
right? Like if someone's like, I'm looking for, and this is in any time, like we all have a friend who we love to death, but like, they're telling you the story that is the version that makes them look good. And
Yes.
everyone, look, like you and I'm telling you, I'm not going to tell you about the client that fired me right now. I mean, I'm happy to tell you about the clients that fired me, but like, there aren't very many of them, but I'm happy to tell you about them.
But it's
But
a reality, right? No, and
yeah,
that's just like
well,
that's the checkpoint, right? So for the
yeah.
audience is like Sometimes we get fired by a client. Sometimes we fire a client. Like,
Oh, that happens all the time. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
there's times where it's like, this isn't my, this isn't my monkeys. This isn't my, this isn't my circus. These aren't my
Right.
monkeys. Like, I'm stepping
But
away from this.
if you ask someone you're thinking about getting in a partnership with, go, hey, can you tell me about a time you got fired by a client? Like, or what was
Mm.
that like? And they can't tell you a story that in any way makes it look like they're responsible, how they contributed to the problem. If
Oh,
every time they talk about other relationships, it's always somebody
somebody
else's
else.
fault, that is usually, it will one day be your fault. Right. That's all I have to say. So I'm generally like, hey, we can make anything work. But if someone like lives in the victim zone where it's never their fault, one day they will make you the person who is at fault for whatever is going wrong. Um,
And that
yeah.
was a did she just really say that moment right here on that
Yeah.
podcast? Because that is truth spoken right there.
And here's one of the things that's tough is like we often have friends like that because we like to help them. They're always in need of help. They've
Yes.
always got a great story to tell you about something that didn't work out. And it's like they can be very entertaining. And these are people, but I also say, is this a person? This is another one that if you were like stranded on the side of the highway, is this the person you would call to pick you up? Right. So there's
Yeah.
another question. Because a lot of times that person, they'll call you when they're stranded. But push comes to shove, you're like,
Yeah,
I
no.
wouldn't rely on them. So you often know. And that's where that relationship inventory process is really helpful because you often know what's not going to work.
True. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the agreement. So now that we
Yeah.
have a partnership agreement, we've kind of understand our terms. This is something that they can work with you with. So anybody that's listening that's in a partnership and maybe you want to reevaluate, maybe you want some coaching around your partnership,
Yeah.
maybe you just need some, step into, what does this look like? What like how often should co-founders and partners evaluate that agreement that they have, that partnership agreement they have?
I think it's a good idea to more frequently in the beginning.
Okay.
So, especially like the alliance where it's more like bullet points and you're just kind of figuring it out, you want to be checking in every week at least when you're doing your
Okay.
strategic planning or however you set up. This is another thing is I do encourage people to have at least once a week a meeting that is like about the business and not just rely on, hey, we're in the office together, I'm calling you, right? To like, make set
Right.
some
No, I
time.
agree. I agree.
So you've got like that rhythm at the beginning. Then
Mm-hmm.
you'll begin to make it more codified, right? You start to make it like type it up, maybe put it on the website, maybe share it internally, however you're doing it. So those I tend to think of as more like at least once a year, though, you should be reviewing your partnership agreement. If you have what's most important, this is again where lawyers can be some lawyers can be helpful, some can be difficult, is we're talking about the spirit. You need to have the spirit of the agreement ready to go before you go to the letter of the agreement.
Okay.
So that's part of like sometimes people are like, well, I don't, are we getting into partnership right now? And I'm like, well, why don't you take 3 months and do a trial period and pick up one project to share
That's really good
or
advice.
something like that and pick a project to share. And part of your agreement is if we upfront is just, if this doesn't work out, like how are we going to distribute funds or how we just, but you can do that. So before you form an LLC, before you have like a lawyer involved, you can do a trial period. It could be just planning. You'd be like, let's spend 3 months planning the
Mm,
launch and we're going to see how can we stay on, can we hold these principles, can we be in partnership through the planning phase, right? And then 3 months from now we'll form an LLC, we'll get the lawyer involved, and we've now got a pretty good understanding of how we want to work together. Because a lot of the things that are by default in an operating agreement are like, you can't make a decision if you spend more than X dollars, right? At IFC, I had partners and one of them was like, well, I redesigned the logo. It only costs like $5,000. I don't understand what the problem is. And the other person was like, I hate this new logo. That's the problem.
yep.
And it's like, but you gave me, I'm the
Mm,
marketing person, but like, you know what I mean? And you could imagine like, it's like, well, the operating agreement says that but we didn't actually have an understanding about how we communicated about
Communicate.
change, right?
Yeah.
Or about things like that.
So really it comes down to in a partnership and then who you like to work with are the co-founders, the partnerships. And then it drips over into everything. So whatever you start in business, it is in your personal. If it's in your personal, it'll
Yeah.
end up in your business. So just
So true.
FYI.
So
So
true.
as we wrap this up, because I cannot believe we are having this much fun so far. Um, Question for you. So this is a pretty, did she really say that? And you've already dropped one really good one when she said, if people are pointing fingers at everybody else, it might happen with you. What's another moment where you've either worked with a client, with a team, and you've said something and they're like, holy crap, did she really say that? Or like something to that effect. Do you have anything that kind of pops to mind for you?
I mean, I definitely have one, which is uh, how's that working for you? Which is like a therapist question. But I
Those
have
are my
what?
favorite.
Yeah, I've uh, again, what happens, like, I would say the thing that's the most bonkers, right, thing that I seem to ever say to people, right? Because most of the time, like, people have said all sorts of stuff to me. I'm here to support you. I might have some words of wisdom, might not. But the thing that usually, like, really kicks up is what I'm like, is this the first time you've had this conversation with like, have you, not just with this person, but have you? And it's a lot of it's this pattern recognition. So I'll be
Mm,
like, and I had a client once, and he had a dysfunctional thing going on with his team, and he's like, he was micromanaging and then this. And I was like, if I follow every step around this cycle, everything that everyone does makes sense, right? You micromanage because they drop the ball. They drop the ball because you step in always and save the problem. Blah blah blah. I was like, so we're in a permanent logic loop. I was like, so the question isn't, does it make sense for you to micromanage somebody who's dropped the ball? I was like, the question is, do you want it to be different?
yeah.
That's the only question. If the answer, and for him, actually, the answer was no. He really liked the repeating of the cycle. And
Yeah,
that was that. I just was like, it turned out that's like a client where he fired me, I fired him, I don't know. But I was like, oh, this client is actually comfortable repeating this cycle. And I hope in my heart that they eventually got to a place where they weren't and they were able to break it. But there's nothing I could do. So
yeah.
that's one where I was like, I do always say, do you want things to be different? There's only two yes, no questions I ask really. It's one is, do you want it to be different? And are you willing to do things differently?
Mm,
And it is totally fine if the answer to one or both of those is no. Come back later. I'm here for you when the answer is yes.
yeah. I love it. So, Kenzia, what is next for you? What's the next big bold move for into the new year, into the future? What does this look like for you?
Um, well, I've got a couple of workshops. So I've been taking a workshop around to mostly to business schools. And it's targeted towards entrepreneurs and people who are thinking of founding a business. It's mostly going to, and I was like, and started having people ask me about it. I was like, oh, there's no reason I can't offer it to everyone. It doesn't, like, it's not like you need to go to a fancy business school to get access to this. It's like, I'm happy to share.
Right.
So I've got one queued up for January.
Okay.
And
Is it
absolutely,
an
I
online workshop
it
or
is. This is going to be virtual, but it's
okay.
interactive. So
Okay.
it's limited. I think I limited to 20, maybe 30 people. So um it is usually when I do it in person, it's like a get up out of your seats interactive. So this is going to be as close to that as possible, but in a virtual environment.
I like it. Okay.
So yeah, so I'm like, I'm really excited. That's why I've kept the attendance pretty limited because I am looking forward to people really being proactive about it. And I'm going to be doing that more frequently, so at least once a quarter.
Okay.
And I'm also launching some programs in it's something called systemic constellation. So it's kind of like a funkier branch of psychology. I'm going to be doing mostly in person in the Boston area where I'm based.
Okay.
But if there's a lot of interest in that, I'll be taking that on the road as well. So those are the two big things I got queued up for January. Um,
Nice.
and then, I love talking to partnerships. So I'm always like, people can look me up on LinkedIn, my website. You can always book a complimentary consultation. Just see what's going on and see if I can and help you get you some resources.
I love it because I will tell you this that there is no better individual than Kezia around her helping you develop that partnership because it can seem a little daunting. There is some legal ease which you want
Yep.
to be aware of, just from a protection of both of all the
Yeah.
individuals involved, right? making sure it's transparent, making sure that it has the ability to flex, to expand. That is really the intention. Even for myself, when we created our partnership, we had like a year exit, an out.
Great.
Like at
Yeah.
your year, if you want to exit, you can exit without any like whiplash, backlash, anything. Whatever
Yeah.
you've invested in the company stays with the company. That was your investment in your business skill set for whatever that was, and that was our agreement.
Yeah.
And
As
so,
long as you all agree, and that's the thing is like whatever you want to put in here. I mean, if you want to put into your operating agreement that you will never have a purple logo, like you can put that in. I mean,
no unicorns?
that is your business. Like, and between the two of you, but I always say, even a legal document, it's kind of like a prenup and postnup. The point of
Yep,
doing the prenup is to talk about
correct.
things, is not to actually plan the divorce. It's to have all the conversations. And
Yep.
that's why if you need to update things along the way, update them along the way.
Well, and that's why for the even for the legal thing, they have you update your annuals every single year,
Exactly.
and it's done with the intent that things change, businesses change, everything evolves. So, even legally with your LLC or your S corp, there is the opportunity for you to update,
And
shift
most
things
people just hit
around.
repeat, right? And I
Yep.
mean, I had a partnership once where they had both worked at a big company
Mm,
and had taken the partnership agreement from this like 20,000 person company
dear
and
Lord.
had just like used the same document
Language, everything.
for their 5 person company. And I was like,
Oh,
wow, like how is that going to work, you know? And you can imagine it made no sense. And so a lot of it is just being
yeah.
like, and spend the money on the law. I always say like a good small business attorney is not going to charge you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars
Yeah.
to set this up, right? But if you come in with an like having done some work with someone like me and you have a sense of yourself and you have a real clear, you'll be very efficient with their time and they will be happy to have you as a client, right?
Yeah.
That's a big
Because
one too.
it'll be easy for them and they don't have to feel like they're fielding 1,000 questions because you've done the preliminary work.
And they
That's
don't feel
the
like they
battle.
have to offer you counseling, right? And that is, I've heard that from lawyers who are like, oh yeah, like it's so great that the client worked with you for like a little bit, like just an initial, because they then by the time they came to me, they weren't fighting about stuff in my office. Like they were on the same page. They had made agreements. The only thing we
Yeah.
were trying to figure out is what should be in a legal document versus what might be in our um, mission statement or our values statement or some other place where we might want to keep it, but that we don't want to put in the legal document.
Got it. So
Yeah,
I know you have a gift for our audience as we're wrapping up. Like I said,
absolutely.
this has been so much fun. But so I just love the name for ladies that you're listening. It's called Partnership 101, aka how not to kill your co-founder.
Yeah.
I love it. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about this.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I've been one of the things I decided to do for 2026 was
Was the
take
workshops.
I cannot believe that it's going to be 2026 was take these workshops that I have been doing kind of in this like rarefied air of these academic institutions and bring it out and make it something that was more accessible to people who are not in I'm not geographically close to or anything like that. And I'm really excited about it. So I've got one scheduled for, I think January
January.
15th. Yeah,
Okay.
January, I think the 15th, but I'm not 100% sure. Um,
Check the
and
link in the show notes. It'll
check
tell you everything you need to
the
know.
links. Those are good. And it's the intro price is $49. I'm just giving it a try. But for your listeners, for everybody who's listening today, if you say the code is she said that. So did she really say that? She said
Hmm.
that. You put
I
that
like it.
code in, complimentary. So and I would love for it to just be all your listeners because I know what a fantastic audience you have. So that doesn't bother me at all. So show up, bring your partner, bring your prospective partners. It's going to be
Bring
amazing.
anybody that you feel like you need to have a conversation with, whether it be
Bring your
friendship or business.
teenagers. We'll
You
go
did
over
mention
some.
that. You did mention that,
We'll go over some of those principles. You can use
yeah.
them anyway. I have had people who have been through it say they used it with their romantic partner. I had people say, hey, they thought they were going to go into a business partnership. They went through the exercise. They changed their mind about going to partnership with the person that they had picked. And I'm like,
Oh,
that's great because you know what? You're not coming to me later trying to help you divorce, right? Like, I'm like, I'd rather hear that 100 times than have one person go, I skipped it all, and then we ended up suing each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kezia, this has been an amazing conversation. I am so glad that you came on and talking a true, honest conversation around co-founders, partnerships, what this looks like, what we need to be aware of. And for my audience and for your audience, I hope you got something new and heard something a little different. And now you're recognizing that, honestly, I love every woman that I've met that's trying to do this on their own. But I do hear the rumbling in the
Yeah.
background that says, I'd like to do this with somebody else. I'd like to find a business partner, but I want to make sure I find the right person,
Yeah.
right? And Kenzia is like, that's me because I can help bridge that gap and have that foster those conversations
Yeah.
that have you say, yes, this is what we're going to do and this is what we're going to do together. It can either, I am totally blessed at this point, in the partnerships that I've had and even the continued partnership. We've bonded as really good friends. We want to travel the world together, and it's
Amazing.
because we constantly are in communication over who's doing good, who's doing what's our area of genius, and letting us lead in those areas of genius, and
That's
not trying to
amazing.
micromanage each other around areas that we don't truly love. So
Yeah.
there's
And
that.
there's a lot of ways I'd be happy to come back and talk about all the ways that you can set it up because some people stick to lanes, some people share, some people do it all. It all can work
Okay.
if you have the fundamental agreement that that's how you want to work together. And that's one of
Yeah.
the things that's beautiful about it.
Yeah. Because we have to have you back.
I'd love to. I'd
To
love to.
just we're gonna have to have like episode 2 or like whatever we just whatever we bring forth for this one. We'll just have
no.
we'll do like a repeat guest, the ones that are coming back that you guys have all asked for. So you know the drill. You're gonna
Yeah.
follow. You're going to connect. You're definitely going to take advantage of this. I love this partnership 101 workshop. Really, right? Like
Yeah.
how not to kill your co-founder or business partner or however you want to say that. So
Yeah.
I am so grateful that you are here. I loved this conversation. Truth bombs galore. And for my audience that's listening, you know the drill. You want to support women, connect with women. If she resonated with you, follow her. The more that we connect with each other, the more that we take our guests and our audience and we say, hey, I want to follow you and learn more about you, the better the world gets. Because I promise you, at some point in your career, or a client that you bring on, or a customer that you have is going to need someone like Enzia as a coach, as somebody that can help set up their business and that partnership. And so here's your resource. All right. So, with that, thank you for joining us here on this another amazing episode of Did She Really Say That? And as I always say, we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone. I can't find the stop recording button. Oh, there it is. I'm just going to leave that.